We may be on the Four Nations break, but that hasn't stopped trade talk from heating up, and one of the teams at the center of all this is the Boston Bruins. The Bruins are no strangers to trade chatter, but this year feels different because they look more like sellers than buyers. In this video, I will talk about who the Bruins are being called about and who is most likely to be moved. Buckle up, Bruins fans. I'm here to give you the latest info on your beloved Boston Bruins. If you've been liking my Bruins content, please leave me a like and subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you, and let's get in. The lead up to the Four Nations break, we saw a lot of teams making some big moves. During the break, it's been very quiet, even though teams can make trades during the Four Nations break. Like most breaks in the NHL, there are unwritten rules that teams shouldn't make trades during this time, and honestly, the NHL wouldn't be too happy if they stole the limelight by making some huge deals. Every GM in the league, though, is at these games, and you can bet they're talking trades during the Four Nations. The NHL trade deadline is March 7th, which is only a couple weeks away, which means a lot of groundwork for those trades are being done during the Four Nations break. I know as fans, when we talk about trades, we talk like they can be made in a day, but a lot of trades can take time to sort out. There's cap, the return, prospects, and futures. There's a lot of things at play when making a deal. Before the break, a lot of talk centered around Brad Marchand, who recently appeared on the What Chaos podcast, and he said he wants to be a Bruin for life, and it'd be weird if he was on another team other than the Boston Bruins.
How would you feel if you were traded?
How would obviously it would be very weird. I would think I would feel very weird, probably a little lost, but I don't know. I haven't really thought about it before. And I don't really think about it because it's not something that I really see happening.
You want to be a lifer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always been my goal is to play here forever. I love it here, and family obviously loves it here, and I just, it's all I know, and I what I love most about it is that the expectations that are put on the group by internally, just from management, ownership, from the team within, like the expectation to be good every year is what you want to be part of. You want to be part of a winning team. Like, you never want to go to a team that's like this and, you know, the rebuilding. It just, that's not enjoyable hockey. You know, you want to be playing something for meaningful every year. And we've had years where we miss playoffs and we're fighting for our lives going down the stretch and, you know, in a playoff race like we are now. And those are some of the best years that you have because every game is meaningful and it's like playoff hockey for a long stretch. So, you know, a little adversity is good for a group but yeah, that's what I love. I love about it being here. It's they want to win, and that's what you want.
All the NHL insiders right now are very skeptical that the Bruins would even trade Marchand, regardless if they make the playoffs or not. Honestly, they're all pretty much saying that Brad Marchand is going to be re-signed. I don't think he's being traded and truly think he will retire Bruin and one day have his number in the rafters. I've done a video about the whole Marchand thing, so check the info in the video for the link. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the business at hand, which is who the Bruins are being called on and who might they trade before March 7th. Emily Kaplan on ABC called the Bruins a trade deadline X factor and said they're listening to a lot right now, both adding and subtracting. Said they're getting a bunch of calls on Frederic, Geekie, and Carlo. Adds that other teams don't believe that they're going to trade Marchand. Frederic is the one I've mentioned for a while now, and is easy because, one, he's a UFA at the end of the season. There was some buzz around a possible extension when the Bruins were still in the playoff spot, but that has seemed to die down. Frederic's play has matched the Bruins' play this year, which has been inconsistent. Frederic has 15 points this season, with 8 of those being goals. Nothing to run home about, but offers a certain skill set that makes him attractive to possible playoff teams. Just like Marchand, though, a couple weeks ago, some rumors were started of a possible trade that wasn't happening. Arthur Staple from The Athletic wrote an article saying that he thinks the Rangers should do, and people ran with it like it was real. He wrote, the Bruins, muddling along in the same vicinity as the Rangers, have a couple of UFA forwards who might fit the Drury mode. Trent Frederic and Justin Brazeau. Neither would be earth-shaking additions, though prices are still high, than you'd like. But that's two sizable players with some skill to provide depth behind the new-look Rangers. Again, this is another reporter's opinion and not a trade that is on the table for the Rangers. He goes on to say the Rangers are short draft capital. So acquiring one of those Bruins, either trading Lindgren and Smith, first flipping some picks, or parting with prospects. If the Rangers are willing to let Brendan Othmann go, they might even convince the Bruins to take Chris Kreider, since surely the Boston Bruins is not on his no trade list. There's a lot to unpack here, but right off the bat, I seriously doubt the Rangers, who are most likely not making the playoffs, are willing to trade Othman for Frederic, who they could sign during free agency, and he isn't exactly lighting it up this year. Othman is currently playing down in Hartford, but has a huge upside with a strong two-way game. I understand the reporters saying he would have to throw in maybe Kreider to make the Bruins do it, but this is also a head scratcher as well. The Bruins don't have cap space to make that work. Kreider makes $6.5 million per season right now, which means the Bruins would have to move out some guys to make the deal even work under the cap. I know because Kreider is a local boy, a lot of fans would want him, and honestly, he's scored a lot of goals over his career, but he isn't exactly a piece you get if you're retooling. He is in year 5 of 7 and looks to have pretty much fallen off a cliff this season, and he's only 33. It would be a gamble, and I would think the Rangers could get some desperate playoff team to take him off their hands instead of having to be thrown in on a trade to get Frederick. Unless the deal is both Frederick and Brazeau, but I don't know why the Rangers would do it. But if I'm the Bruins, I make it work somehow. It feels more like a pipe dream than a reality to me. I think Frederick and Brazeau are all but certain to be moved before the deadline if the Bruins continue their inconsistent play and don't make the playoffs. Frederick is probably the only UFA they have that a contender might be willing to give up a first-round pick for if they truly think they need some snarl at the deadline. We have seen many players command a first-round pick at the deadline, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities. I think Brazeau would get you maybe a second, but most likely a third or a low-end prospect. With Brazeau falling out of favor as of late, and he kind of tends to fall on the ice a lot, and he's not using his size to his advantage, I would say he's very likely to be traded. If you search both of these players' names, you will see them in many articles of writers saying their team they cover should trade for them. I was impressed with Brazeau at the start of the season, but he isn't very noticeable anymore for me. I thought Frederick would have a huge season this year, as he was going to be given every opportunity to do so, and he truly hasn't played well at all. If you're a fan of both players, I'd say your goodbyes. And honestly, don't buy any jerseys with their names on them right now. I think Brazeau would be a good fit in Edmonton's bottom 6 and fits nicely under their cap limit. I think every contending team would call about Frederick, and you send him to the highest bidder. Whatever you do, don't let them walk, and make sure you get assets back for them. Geekie and Carlo are the other names mentioned. And honestly, I wasn't surprised to hear. I think Geekie could help a lot of contending teams in their bottom 6 and has played well as of late for the Bruins. He is versatile, has some speed, and every now and then he can score. He has a very reasonable contract at $2 million per season, and he's an RFA at the end of the season. I look at teams like Edmonton, New Jersey, Winnipeg, or even Vegas, where Geekie could make a lot of sense looking at what they need. I'm sure if the Bruins did make him available, they would be able to get some quality assets for him and maybe a second rounder and a B prospect from a team. The Bruins don't have to trade Geekie though, because he's an RFA at the end of the year, but with the cap going up next year, they might be better off moving him instead of giving him a raise next year and locking him up. Geekie might be a sell high type player and get some assets back from a contending team. If a team offers them a first round pick, they better say yes. I don't think they will, but you never know with teams. They have players like Lysell and Merkulov in the system that could fill in his role as much and a cheaper cap hit. And if you're not making the playoffs, let the kids play. Last, and certainly not least, is Brandon Carlo. I want to start off by saying I highly doubt the Bruins move on from him, but obviously teams are going to come calling for a minute-munching guy. Carlo has a 10-team no-trade list, which does make him a little difficult to move. Carlo is a large part of the leadership core for the Bruins and is their NHLPA representative. The odds of him wanting out of Boston are very slim, which means if the Bruins try to trade him, he needs to be a team that is not on his no-trade list, because he's 100% going to say no if they are. Saying teams will call on Carlo is a no-brainer because many teams would love to have him. I know he isn't an offensive dynamo, but he does do a good job of keeping pucks out of his own net. I know it doesn't look like that this season, but as the team as a whole is struggling, little mistakes become huge mistakes this year. Carlo is in year 4 of 6 on his contract with a reasonable cap hit of $4.1 million. If the Bruins truly are taking calls on him, teams would have to give a sizable piece to make it happen. The Bruins aren't trading Brandon Carlo for picks and prospects, but they might move him in a hockey trade. Once upon a time, they almost moved him to Colorado for Gabriel Landeskog. Carlo feels more like a guy that is moved at the draft, but if a team is willing to pay the high price for the Bruins would have on him, it could happen. I would put a possible Carlo trade in the highly unlikely pile. The fact of the matter is the Bruins appear to be heading down the road of sellers at the deadline this year, which means in the next couple of weeks, the roster is going to look a lot different. I'm sure if Don Sweeney can do a move that can help them now, he will do so, but I don't expect the Bruins to make any trades for any rental type players this year. They would be looking to move for players for picks, prospects, or players with term. I'm sure as hockey starts up again, you're going to see a lot of names starting to float around, but I can't see the Bruins trading any player from their core. You're going to hear everybody saying trade Zadorov, trade Lindholm, trade Swayman. They ain't moving these guys. The players from the core aren't getting traded, but the players I mentioned before, they could get traded. And also, you could think about guys like Andrew Peeke and Cole Koepke. Those guys could be moved if they get offered good enough picks for them. I want to hear from you, though, and what you think about hearing the Bruins in the rumor mill, but not adding players, but actually subtracting players. That's a wrap on today's video. To stay up to date on all the news surrounding the Boston Bruins, please subscribe and drop me a like. If news breaks surrounding the Boston Bruins, be sure to check out the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you, and I'll see you next time.